Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and today I am here with a mini book haul. I'm trying to limit my spending as best I can, however, there were some books that I just had to purchase because they were so affordable. I also just wrapped up part one of an indie bookshop shopping spree, but that is part of a future video, so you will see that a little later on. These purchases came in two bunches. The first were a bunch of Eliza Haywood works, which I found for very reasonable prices through the Strand in New York City. I purchased them online because I don't have plans to go to New York City for a month or two, and here they are, and I couldn't be more pleased. So the first piece I have is Phantomina, or Love in a Maze, which I feel like I might have read in university, but I'm not entirely sure. And then three of her other works. We have The Mercenary Lover, The Fatal Secret, or Constancy in Distress, and finally a play of hers, A Wife to Be Let. Eliza Haywood was an 18th century writer and one of the potential inspirations for Jane Austen. So I went on a binge and ordered all of these because they were all under $10, which is fantastic. Then I found a few more modern classics, which were also mostly under $10, so I had to order them as well. The first was Goodbye to Berlin by Christopher Isherwood. I love these vintage Red Spine editions. And since the release of the cast album of Cabaret featuring Eddie Redmayne and Jessie Buckley, I have a renewed interest in the story of Cabaret, so I thought I would give reading these original stories a go. If you're unfamiliar, Goodbye to Berlin and Cabaret are set in Berlin in the mid to late 1930s, and you're looking at a bunch of people just trying to live their lives in the free and easy way that Berlin was known for, while at the same time the Nazi Party is on the rise and is this looming threat to all of them. I'm intrigued to see how this turns out because I tried to read Christopher and His Kind many years ago now, and that's when I realized exactly how autobiographical Goodbye to Berlin and Cabaret are. But it was also a very strange reading sensation because it was Christopher Isherwood's memoir, but he wrote about himself in the third person and wrote as though he hated himself, which made it very uncomfortable reading. So I'm intrigued to see if these stories read a little bit better because he's a little bit more distanced from the story. And then I ordered 3 Graham Greene novels, despite never having read Graham Greene before. Partly I loved the covers, partly I loved the descriptions. So first I ordered Brighton Rock, which I love these covers. They're so simple and yet they're just so perfect. I'm not entirely sure what it's about. I think it has to do with gangsters in Brighton in the 1930s. It sounds quite interesting. But then, as I was investigating those books, I found 2 more whose descriptions sounded amazing, so I had to order them as well. The first is Travels with My Aunt, in which this young man is reunited with one of his aunts at a family funeral and is persuaded to just travel across the world with her and has the most bizarre of adventures with his aunt, who is in her 70s, by the way. And it just sounds amazing. What do they list here? Yes, they travel through Brighton, Paris, Istanbul, Paraguay, mixing with hippies, war criminals, CIA men, smoking pot, breaking all the currency regulations, and eventually coming alive after a dull suburban lifetime. How could that not grab you? And then lastly, I found Our Man in Havana, which it feels really awful for me to pronounce as a Spanish teacher. I want to pronounce it La Habana, but that in amongst all the English also sounds weird, so we're gonna go with Havana right now. But this is the story, it sounds like, of a man, a native Cuban man in Havana, who is doing his best to hold his life together when suddenly he gets this mysterious job just dropping things off, papers, subtle hints. He doesn't think anything of it, and he could use the money. But then when those events that are mentioned in those papers and those hints start coming true, he realizes that he's in over his head and he's part of something way bigger than he ever intended to get involved in. It sounds amazing. I've been desperate to find out more about Cuba ever since I learned about the Cuban Revolution and how exactly that all worked. I thank Dirty Dancing 2 for sparking that interest for me when I was a senior in high school. And so I'm really intrigued to see how this novel turns out because it sounds fantastic. Very Le Carre, which is great because Le Carre blurbs it on the back. So that was my mini book haul thus far. Let me know if you have any thoughts about any of those novels or places that you would recommend I go once I have read these. And I will see you soon in another video. Until then, be safe, be well, and happy reading. Bye everyone.